There are at least 7 watering mistakes that kill more grass than any drought ever could, and almost all of them come from good intentions. Every summer, millions of homeowners do the exact same thing to their lawn. They water it every single day. And every summer, those lawns turn brown anyway. More water, more often, greener lawn. It sounds logical, doesn't it? But the fix isn't more water. It's the opposite. University Turf Research and the EPA both say the same thing. Most residential lawns get too much water applied the wrong way at the wrong time. So we're going to walk through every one of these mistakes, explain the actual science behind why they're killing your grass, and then show you exactly how to fix them, including a few tools that can automate the whole process for under $100. Stick around for mistake number 5, because it has nothing to do with water, but it's probably doubling how much you need. Okay, so the single biggest mistake, and the one that causes the most damage, is daily shallow watering. It feels responsible. 10 minutes every morning, nice and consistent. The problem is, a short daily session only wets the top 2 or 3 centimeters of soil. Your grass roots figure out pretty fast that all the moisture is near the surface, so that's where they stay, shallow, weak, and completely dependent on you. And here's the frustrating part. You're actually doing more work for worse results. The moment you skip a day or a heat wave rolls in, those shallow roots can't reach deeper moisture. It burns. The research-backed approach is deep and infrequent, 2 to 3 times per week, applying roughly 25 to 40 millimeters total, soaking the soil 15 to 20 centimeters deep. That forces roots to chase the water downward, building a deeper, more drought-resistant root system. There's a simple way to check if you're hitting the right depth. Push a long screwdriver into the soil after watering. If it slides in easily about 15 centimeters, you're good. If it stops short, you need a longer runtime. If it goes in like butter all the way, you're probably overwatering, and that leads to a whole different set of problems. The screwdriver trick is just the start. The mistakes get less obvious from here. The second mistake is all about timing, specifically when you water. Midday, watering loses a huge amount to evaporation. The sun and wind pull moisture off the soil surface before it ever reaches the roots. Nighttime watering swings the other direction. The blades stay wet for hours with no sun to dry them, and that creates ideal conditions for fungal diseases like brown patch and dollar spot. You're basically creating a petri dish on your lawn. The consensus across every major turf science program, and I mean everyone, is the same. Water between 5 and 10 in the morning. Early enough to avoid peak evaporation, late enough that the grass dries before nightfall. If you're manually dragging a hose around, that might mean setting an alarm. If you've got any kind of timer or controller, this is the easiest setting to get right, and the one most people never bother changing from the default. The next one is the one that doesn't get nearly enough attention as it should. Do you actually know what type of soil you have? Most people don't. And that single piece of information changes everything about how you should water. Clay soil holds water well, but it absorbs it slowly. If you run your sprinklers for 20 straight minutes on clay, most of that water ends up as runoff. Down the sidewalk, down the driveway, anywhere except where you want it. Sandy soil is the opposite. It drains so fast that a single long session passes right through the root zone before the grass can use it. The fix for clay is a technique called cycle and soak. Instead of one 24-minute run, you split it into 3 8-minute bursts with breaks in between, giving the water time to absorb before the next round hits. For sandy soil, you actually do want shorter, slightly more frequent sessions to keep moisture in the root zone before gravity pulls it deeper. Same weekly total, just delivered differently based on what's under your feet. Mistake number 4 is misreading what your lawn is telling you. Both overwatering and underwatering can make your grass look terrible. Wilting, discoloration, thin patches. Most people's instinct when the lawn looks bad, add more water, which, if overwatering was the problem, makes everything worse. So here's how to tell the difference. An underwatered lawn develops a bluish-gray tint. The blades fold or curl inward. Walk across it and your footprints stay visible for much longer than normal. The grass doesn't have enough turgor pressure to spring back. An overwatered lawn looks different. The soil feels spongy or mushy underfoot. You might notice mushrooms popping up, a musty smell, or puddles that stick around for more than a couple of hours after watering. The grass itself tends to go yellow or pale rather than blue-gray. Opposite problems, opposite symptoms, opposite fixes. From a distance, though, they look surprisingly similar. Remember that mistake I mentioned earlier, the one that has nothing to do with water but doubles how much you need? It's mowing too short. A lot of people scalp their lawn trying to get that golf course look. But golf courses use specialty turf varieties, dedicated irrigation systems, and full-time maintenance crews. On a standard residential lawn, cutting below about 5 centimeters exposes the soil to direct sunlight, which dramatically increases evaporation. It also stresses the grass plant itself. Taller blades shade their own roots, retain soil moisture, and produce more energy through photosynthesis. Colorado State University Extension recommends a minimum mowing height of about 5 centimeters, with 6 to 8 centimeters preferred, but this depends a bit on what grass type you have as well. And never cut more than a third of the blade height at once. Raise your mower deck one notch, and you might be surprised how much less water your lawn suddenly needs. So, at this point you might be thinking, okay, water deep and infrequent, do it in the morning, adjust for soil, mow a bit higher. Well, almost. If you do just those things, you're already ahead of most people. But there's a deeper problem that makes all of these fixes fragile, and it's the reason most lawns still get it wrong even when the owner knows better. Mistake number 6. Watering on a fixed schedule that ignores the weather. The classic set and forget timer. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, same runtime, same zones, regardless of whether it rained yesterday or whether a heat wave just tripled your lawn's water demand. The EPA estimates that a household with a poorly maintained irrigation system can waste up to 95,000 liters of water per year. Nationally, as much as 50% of outdoor water use is lost to wind, evaporation, and runoff from inefficient systems. Fixed timers are the single biggest contributor to that waste. They water when it's raining. They water the same amount in a 15-degree week as a 40-degree week. Most people set them once in May and don't touch them until October. Then there's one that's genuinely invisible to most people. Poor sprinkler coverage. Sprinkler heads get clogged, knocked out of alignment, or gradually sink below the grass line. Heads that were adjusted once 5 years ago are now watering the sidewalk more than the lawn. Think of it like painting a wall with gaps. You can apply all the right paint, but if the roller misses spots, those spots stay bare. Same with sprinkler overlap. If your head-to-head coverage doesn't reach, you get dry rings between zones that no amount of runtime will fix. A quick catch can test, set out a few tuna cans or plastic cups across a zone and run it for 15 minutes. Shows you exactly where your weak spots are. It takes 10 minutes and it's one of the most useful diagnostics you can do for your irrigation system. Everything I've covered so far is something you can fix manually, if you stay on top of it. But here's the real question. Will you? Because the research suggests most people won't. And there's a category of tools specifically designed for the people who know the right answer, but don't have time to execute it every week. We'll get to those in a minute. But first, there's one more mistake that ties everything together. Your yard isn't one uniform surface. Shaded areas need less water than full sun zones. Slopes cause runoff before the soil can absorb anything. They need the same cycle and soak approach as clay. The strip next to your driveway bakes in reflected heat all afternoon, so it dries out twice as fast as the middle of the lawn. Treating every part of your yard the same way is the last mistake on this list, and it's why zone-by-zone control isn't just convenient, it's necessary. So let's talk about the fix, the one that handles most of these mistakes automatically. And that's smart irrigation controllers. These replace your basic timer with a controller that adjusts watering based on local weather data, soil type settings, and zone-by-zone configuration. Rain skip, wind skip, freeze skip. They cancel or reduce runs automatically when conditions change. Unlike a manual adjustment you might forget, the controller does it every single day without you thinking about it. Most in-ground units mount right where your old timer was, indoors or in a weatherproof outdoor enclosure. And the hose bib options are built for year-round outdoor exposure. Now, the water savings claims around smart controllers vary a lot, and I want to be honest about that. The EPA says replacing a clock-based controller with a WaterSense certified one can reduce irrigation water use by up to 30%, saving an average home up to roughly 57,000 liters per year. University studies have found savings anywhere from about 6% to over 40%, depending on climate and, this is the key part, how badly the homeowner was overwatering before. A peer-reviewed study in the ASCE Journal of Water Resources found that general users save around 15%, while heavy overwaterers save more than 40%. So the worse your current habits, the bigger the win. If you were already underwatering though, a smart controller might actually increase your use slightly, because it's applying the right amount, which for your lawn might be more than you were giving it. That's the honest picture. So which controllers are actually worth considering? If you have an in-ground sprinkler system, the go-to recommendation right now is the Ratio 3. It runs around $200 for an 8-zone unit and works with Apple Home, Google Home, and Amazon's voice assistant. It pulls hyperlocal weather data to handle rain, wind, and freeze skips automatically, and there's no subscription. It's the top pick across Wirecutter, Consumer Reports, and most independent reviews for good reason. If budget is more of a concern, the Orbit Beehive XR comes in at around $95 for 8 zones. It's EPA WaterSense certified, works with Google and Amazon, and includes weather-based adjustments. There's no Apple Home support, but for the price, it's the best value option on the market. That's weather-adjusted, zone-by-zone irrigation for under $100, less than what most people spend on wasted water in a single summer. For the absolute cheapest entry point, the Wise Sprinkler Controller is about $60. It works with Google Home and Amazon's voice assistant, and it does require a Sprinkler Plus subscription for the smart weather features, around $10 a year with the first year included. Without that subscription, you're essentially back to a basic timer with app control. With it, you get weather skips and smart scheduling at a price point nothing else matches. One thing to know, the Wise unit is indoor only, so you'll mount it inside and run the wiring out to your valve box. If you don't have an in-ground system, and a lot of homeowners don't, there's still a few options. The Eve Aqua is a smart hose bib valve that connects to your outdoor spigot. It runs about $120, works natively with Apple Home and Thread, requires no cloud account, and handles up to 7 schedules. It's iOS only though, and you'll need an Apple TV or HomePod as a hub for remote control. If you're not in the Apple ecosystem, the Orbit Beehive Smart Hose Timer does a similar job for around $85 with the Wi-Fi hub included, and it works with Google and Amazon. Another great option is the Sonoff Hydro Duo. It's a dual-zone Zigbee and Bluetooth water valve priced at about $42. 2 independent channels from a single faucet, so you can run your front garden drip line on one schedule and your back garden sprinkler on another. It works natively with Home Assistant and Homey, and it can reach Apple Home, Amazon, Google, and SmartThings through a Matter bridge. But if you don't have a smart home setup, you can still set it up and run it with only your phone over Bluetooth. It has a built-in flow meter, freeze and leak alerts, 12 on-device schedules, and it runs on 4 AA batteries for roughly a year. The build is IP65 rated with a brass inlet, and it ships in both EU and US thread variants, BSP for Europe, NH for North America. And for anyone who really wants to dial things in, adding a soil moisture sensor takes the guesswork out entirely. The EcoWit WH51 runs about $18 to $25 per sensor, connects through a small gateway you'll need to pick up separately, and integrates with Home Assistant. Instead of estimating when to water based on the calendar, you're responding to what the soil actually needs. That's the difference between a schedule and a system. There's one more reason to pay attention right now. Drought restrictions across the western US and Europe are getting stricter every year. Denver declared Stage 1 drought conditions earlier this year, mandatory 2 days per week watering, with fines starting at $250 and escalating from there. Parts of California and Arizona have gone as low as 1 day per week, and some cities have banned non-functional turf entirely. Here's something most people don't know. A growing number of municipalities actually exempt properties with EPA WaterSense certified smart controllers from certain restrictions, because the data shows those systems use less water than the manual limits allow. So the same tool that saves you money on your water bill could also give you more flexibility on your watering schedule. So to sum it all up, water deep and infrequent 2 to 3 times per week, soaking 15 to 20 centimeters deep, and water in the morning between 5 and 10 a.m. Know your soil type and adjust your method, cycle and soak for clay, shorter runs for sand. Learn the difference between overwatering and underwatering symptoms before you reach for the hose. Raise your mowing height. And if you want all of that handled automatically, a smart controller starting at around $60 is the single best upgrade most lawns will ever get. If you want to go deeper on which irrigation system is right for your setup, in-ground controllers, hose bib valves, and the newer all-in-one robotic sprinklers, I've done a full breakdown that I'll link above and in the description. If this helped, subscribe. Every video on this channel is independent and focused on what actually works. And until next time, keep it smart, keep it simple, and keep it green.